The following Dairy Producer Spotlight was developed as part of the Navigating Niche Dairy Products series of educational materials produced by the University of Tennessee's Center for Profitable Agriculture. The Navigating Niche Dairy Products series of educational materials focuses on the regulation, production, and marketing of non-food niche dairy products such as soaps and cosmetics. This video and other materials in the Navigating Niche Dairy Products series was developed by CPA on behalf of the Southeast Dairy Business Innovation Initiative. Funding for this series of educational materials was made possible in part by the United States Department of Agriculture's Agricultural Marketing Service. To learn more about the Navigating Niche Dairy Products series of educational materials developed by the UT Center for Profitable Agriculture, visit the video description below. Located in Wilson County, Tennessee, Little Seed Farm is a family-owned and operated goat dairy ran by James and Eileen Ray. Little Seed Farm was established in 2012 and specializes in soap and cosmetic products. Little Seed is known for their variety of skincare products, including deodorant cream, as well as goat milk soaps. Little Seed places an emphasis on sustainability and has operated entirely on solar power since 2015. In this Dairy Producer Spotlight, Little Seed co-founder James Ray shares insight into how the Ray's value-added dairy business has evolved and embraced niche dairy products such as soaps and cosmetics since their founding.
I'm James Ray from Little Seed Farm. We're an organic goat dairy in Lebanon, Tennessee, and we have about 50 or so goats that we milk. We use the milk to make a moisturizer and bar soaps, and then we have a line of other products that don't include the milk but that we make here on the farm as well. We have about 20 or so employees, and our most popular products are our deodorant cream, our bar soaps, and our facial products like our moisturizer and our facial serums. We've been in operation since 2012, so this is our 13th year. Yeah, the two value-added dairy products that we produce are our bar soaps. We have 17 different varieties of our bar soaps. We've been manufacturing those for 12 years. And then we also have a goat's milk moisturizer, which is a facial cream that we've been manufacturing for about 8 years. We did produce cheese back in 2012, 2013, but we've stopped producing any cheese or fluid milk, anything of that nature. No food products since then. Yeah, so we have a business plan that my wife and I developed to start the farm that we still reference back to. And then we kind of have our annual and longer-term planning sessions that help guide us. Our marketing plan, yeah, we have a marketing team specifically. So my wife, Eileen, is kind of the head of the marketing here. She helps manage our website, our direct email campaigns, our social media, just anything customer facing, all of our branding and product development. So we do have kind of a structured marketing system that we use for all of that. So 2 years ago, we moved into our new facility. It's about 10,000 or so square feet. We have 20 employees, including myself and my wife, and we produce mostly deodorant. Deodorant's our primary product. We'll typically produce between 1,500 and 2,000 deodorants a day for the 5-day work week. Bar soap is also a very popular product. We'll generally produce around 2,500 or so bars of soap a week, and then all of our other products kind of around that. We are primarily a direct-to-consumer business, so we manufacture all of our products here, and then we ship them to people's homes. We average about 500 shipments a day at this point, and we also sell through Amazon, and Amazon's another few hundred shipments a day. In addition to the direct-to-consumer part of the business, we also ship to smaller retailers around the country, and we work with around 1,000 or so small boutique shops. We don't work with large chains, just smaller boutique shops. Yeah, so since we started, our production has grown a lot, obviously. We started manufacturing soap in our kitchen. I actually was making it in, stainless steel bowls with a hand blender, and then I would make wooden soap molds that we would line with the liner paper and make loaves that way. I started cutting, the bars by hand. I would measure them and cut them. And as we scaled, we got like a push cutter for the loaves. I started making longer loaves, more loaves, and then at some point a few years in, we started manufacturing in the larger soap molds, at which point you can use a air compressor operated cutting machine, which is what we use currently to cut the larger blocks of soap into loaves and then into bars. So we started making, I think my first loaves were either 10 or 12 bars per loaf, and now each batch makes about 310 bars. So that's kind of where we've scaled to. We've been using that same system since 2015 or 2016. So since then we've grown, but we've used the same equipment that we used back then, just to make more batches per day or more batches per week. So our production facility, when we first started, technically was our kitchen, but we kind of quickly moved out to a smaller building that we had. We had an outbuilding on this farm when we purchased it. We finished it on the inside, and then we moved our production out there. That was really when we started working with Kroger, that we moved our production out there, and we finished that space, and then we doubled that space. And we operated out of there for quite a long time. I would say we moved our production out there probably in 2013 or 2014, and we operated out of that building probably until 2021, 2022, at which point, kind of at the beginning of COVID, we started thinking about expanding into a new facility, and that's when we built the one that we're currently in. And we were fully moved into the new facility by early 2023. So yeah, we've had about 2 years in here now. Yeah, so our production processes have stayed the same. We've just scaled them to larger batches. They're still small batches, relatively speaking. But like I mentioned, instead of making 10 bars of soap at a time, we make 300. And the same with our deodorant. Our deodorant process used to be closer to like 100 or so jars of deodorant per batch, and now it's closer to 200, 225 or so, and we just make more batches per day. So our systems have really stayed the same. Our recipes have all stayed the same. It's just the size of the batches that we make at a time have increased. And then obviously the number of people involved in the process has increased. So for soap and cosmetics, they are separate. We do them both here, so we kind of use the same standards that the FDA would use for cosmetics for our soap operation, just because it's easier to keep it all aligned, and the FDA restrictions or regulations are a lot more strict than the other soap regulations. So MoCRA is the name of that law that was passed by Congress a couple years ago, and it hasn't really been enforced much yet, at least not at our scale. It's supposed to apply to businesses doing over $1 million in sales, and it has some guidance in the law, but the FDA actually hasn't expanded on that guidance. So at this point, I think a lot of businesses are doing kind of what they can. We use as food and beverage businesses as a guide for our production processes. Obviously, you want to abide by all of those standards, but until there's, I think, an investment on the FDA's part to really define what procedures and protocols need to be taken for cosmetics, we'll just continue doing the best we can. And once we hear more specific guidelines, then we'll be ready, to adhere to those at that time. We do not. So our business does over $1 million in sales a year, so we are not considered a small business under those standards. Yeah, we don't typically target specific demographics intentionally. The demographics that have kind of navigated to our products are women. Generally between 30 and 50 or so is going to be our primary audience. That'll probably be about 80% of our customer base. We do have some men on the fringes and some older women and some younger women, but generally speaking, it's kind of 30 to 50-year-olds.
Target audience really hasn't changed very much. It's been pretty consistent. I think as we've grown, we've seen more men come into the brands.
Our marketing efforts really kind of run the gamut. We do occasionally some print marketing locally in various magazines. We do a lot of social media advertising, particularly through Meta, so Instagram and Facebook, but we've also done TikTok and experimented on other channels. We do a lot of direct marketing, so through our email list, we send out emails weekly to our customers, and those are really kind of our main channels. We do have organic social media posts that we use as well to reach customers. Yes, the supply chain and logistics are always an issue. COVID presented some unique circumstances for sure. I think that's a really important thing to take into consideration and to plan for. It's something that I'm very involved with still, to this day, because of its critical nature, especially for a manufacturing operation, to make sure you have everything you need. And so the supply chain efforts, are super important. Today, we're facing some issues with the tariffs and the just kind of lack of knowledge about what's going to happen, what the rates are going to be, where they're going in the future, how that's going to impact supply availability. Some companies kind of rushing to buy stuff before the tariffs hit. So there is, just kind of a constant, you kind of have to have a constant eye, finger on the pulse of what's happening with all of your suppliers, with all of the materials you're bringing in, and knowing what you have in stock and how much you need or can keep in stock to prevent, out of stock situations.
Yeah, so our labeling and product packaging varies product to product. When we first started, we applied the labels by hand. We would purchase them on a roll. And for the soaps, we would cut the wrappers off sheets of paper and use a glue stick and glue them together. So at first it was very rudimentary, at home, kind of homemade feel to it. Once we started working with the larger chains, so back when we worked with Kroger and Target, we kind of switched to boxes. That made it a lot faster to package. We were able to put our barcodes on the bottoms and just add a lot more information to the packaging for the consumer. Helped, put it on the shelf and really, stock the product in a nice way. That switch to boxes, some of our retailers at the time preferred the homemade look, and we're not super happy about it, but I think ultimately the packaging change really helped us grow. It also made it easier to pack and ship the products direct to the consumer. At this point, we had switched for our bottles and jars to using a label machine to apply labels to the jars. And then a few years ago, we switched to actually screen printing all of our bottles. So now there's a couple items where we still apply some of the smaller, lesser moving items we still apply labels to on the machine one at a time. But the vast majority of the product packaging we're bringing in has already been printed and is ready to go for us, so we don't need to do anything on our end.
Our packing peanuts, we love them. They're made out of sorghum. They're completely biodegradable. They dissolve in water instantly. You can run them under an outdoor faucet and they'll evaporate, throw them out in the rain, put them in your compost bin, and they dissolve. So they're 100% sorghum. They're popped like the Cheetos are popped, and in the same type of machine. And then the hulls that are left over are used for fiber and horse feed. These are made locally. The brand is called Puffy Stuff, but locally for us in Lebanon, Tennessee, the brand is called Puffy Stuff. They're manufactured by Edwards Feeds. Look them up. They're a great company. We have a great relationship with them, and the packing peanuts are better, than the ones made out of corn. They're a lot firmer, so they provide better padding. And then again, of course, they're made here in Tennessee. So. I think going into it, the biggest gray area for me that I kind of wish we knew more about was just kind of how retailers work and how like the wholesale systems work. You can figure that out pretty quickly, but having to go through all those steps, like from a packaging standpoint, from a regulation standpoint, getting your product onto shelves and working out those nuances with your wholesale accounts, like if you had all that knowledge already going into it, it would make life a lot easier. But I think the reality is, as an entrepreneur, you're getting into something and you're having to learn so much so quickly that every facet of the business presents new challenges and new areas and opportunities for learning. So you're going to have to figure it all out at one point or another. I think in today's day and age, with the amount of direct marketing and direct to consumer shipping, most entrepreneurs getting into it are going to really need to know how to run their own website, how to operate their own website, if they're going to use Shopify or another platform, things like that. When we first started, Shopify wasn't even really around, so we ramped up as they ramped up. There wasn't really a need for us to know more about that at the time. We've kind of grown as they've grown, so that wasn't really something on as big of a deal on our radar. But I think as an entrepreneur starting now, that would be where I would focus my time, is figuring out
start my own website, operate my own distribution if needed, and then develop the systems, around that. Yeah, I mean, there's a variety of websites out there for equipment. If you're starting really small, like we did, you can use a stick blender and a stainless steel bowl and get away with it. I think there's, if you Google soap equipment, there's a handful of soap equipment suppliers for scaling. I think it's mostly the same equipment available out there. We do cold process, so it's a little bit different than if you were doing hot process. But I think, going through the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetics Guild's website will lead you can point you in the right directions from an equipment standpoint. In terms of the ingredients you use, a lot of that's going to depend on what your brand wants to communicate to the customers. We use a lot of organic ingredients. We use only natural ingredients. Cosmetics can go all the way from being completely synthetic to completely natural. So depending on where you're going with your brand, there's different suppliers out there for those ingredients. Testing them, being really rigorous on understanding what you're buying is super important, and then forming good relationships with your packaging suppliers. There's a lot of very small packaging suppliers that you can use at first to test things, and as you grow, you can grow into different distributors for various packaging, or you can purchase your packaging direct, which is what we do a lot of times from the manufacturer as well. No, I think, when you're starting out in terms of resources, it's good to look at what other companies are doing. So depending on how you want to go to market, if you want to have more of a local presence, trying to figure out all right, what events, what trade shows, what farmers markets and things like that or craft fairs, can I attend, get your booth set up, get your signage, get your pricing and your products made. If you're going to have more of a presence like that, it's a little bit of a different approach than if you're going to be more manufacturing and shipping everything. You'll want to look more at like an e-commerce business that you see that's doing that, kind of understand what platform they're using to host their website, and purchase some of those products, take a look at their containers. A lot of times you can really figure things out on your own by looking at what other brands are doing, and especially other brands that are doing what you want to do. There's thousands of brands out there that are manufacturing soap and cosmetics, just like us, and so I think having a good awareness of what's going on in the market, what's going on in the industry, can really point you in the right direction in terms of where your business is going to go and what direction you want to take. Yeah, so in terms of what's next for us, right now we're just kind of moving in. We've had a couple years in our new facility, so we're kind of optimizing this space. Our team has grown significantly, and we're considering whether we need to add more manufacturing space or what our next steps may be. I think at the existing scale, we're pretty happy. So we're not trying to be $1 billion business or anything. So just being a family farm, I think we're at a size that's suitable for us. Eileen and I also have 2 young kids that are in grade school, so we're focused on our family life more so than really growing in the business and things like that. I think as an entrepreneur, you're constantly having that work-life balance conversation, and over the years we've had to navigate that and decide, especially while our children are young, to devote more time to family than work, or have a balance at least. And so that's kind of where we're at right now.
The Navigating Niche Dairy Products series of educational materials was developed by the University of Tennessee's Center for Profitable Agriculture. The UT Center for Profitable Agriculture is a partnership between University of Tennessee Extension and the Tennessee Farm Bureau Federation. To learn more about CPA and our value-added dairy team, visit our website online at cpa.tennessee.edu.